Willie, thank you very much for joining our oral memories session, and with your mum and dad, Skinners, father and mother, being good golfers, it was fairly natural that you would be involved in golf. Is that right?
Yes. Mm-hmm. So yes, they were very keen golfers, and my mother played off 5, and my father played off 5. So on the summer nights, they used to drag me out, and with a little cut-down wooden shafted club to play golf, and I didn't like that at all. I wasn't keen on the game at that time, but I had to go because they couldn't leave me in the house on my own. So I just had to go out and put up with it, but things changed later in life.
And was football and things like that, fishing, was that part of the growing up?
Oh, I played football after that. Yes, I played for Dornoch for the different teams, the junior team and the senior team, and I won medals. We won cups for that as well. Mm-hmm. Yes.
But then looking at golf, you obviously developed your skill in golf to quite a high standard. Which
yes, when I got a bit older, into my early teens, I got keen on golf, and I was really keen, and I used to do a lot of practicing. But unfortunately, it was just after the war, and there was nobody to give you any lessons.
Right.
And I just had to copy the good players in the club and try and swing like them, and there was no real advice on how to play the game, and I just had to learn it the hard way.
Who would be the ones that you copied and followed in that day?
Oh, I liked the swing of John George Sutherland.
Right.
Who had a lovely swing, and I tried to copy his swing. He was a good low handicap player. Maybe I think he was a scratch player.
And then, of course, the Keggi Shield would still have been a big thing. Was it in your day? Did it start off just as a Saturday?
Well, it was a big occasion. The Keggi Shield. It was like the Highland Games. Way back when I played in the 50s and 60s, and a lot of Dornoch people would go out and watch the Keggi Shield, and that was the only time they were ever on the golf course.
Uh-huh.
And we used to get huge crowds watching, but there wasn't Americans playing in it then, and there was more local players that were in it. There was more interest to the local people.
And your dad became secretary of the club?
Well, my father was the assistant to John Sutherland.
All right.
And in John Sutherland's latter years, my father was doing all the work. He was doing the town clerk's job and the secretary's job at the golf club. So when John Sutherland died, my father was more or less automatically promoted into these positions because he was doing it anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's how he became secretary.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I sort of took you away from there, but I've got to mention 4 times winner of the silver medal. Explain to the listeners about the silver medal for the Keggi Shield, Willie.
Well, that was one of the main things, is the silver medal, and if you win the silver medal, it was a great honour to do that, especially a local person winning it.
And that was for the lowest score?
It was the lowest. I think it was the lowest gross score in the first round of the Keggi Shield, but I think it's changed now. I think it's 2 rounds now.
It is, yes. So you had many duels and battles in the Keggi Shield with another famous North golfer, Jimmy Miller.
Well, I was in 4 finals, and I won the first one. I was playing Tommy McCulloch, who was the son of the Danny McCulloch, who was a professional here prior to the Second World War, and I beat him in the final. And then I had 2 finals with Jim Miller. The first one, we went to the 8th extra hole.
Gee.
The furthest hole from the clubhouse, and we didn't finish till about 7 o'clock at night. and he beat me on the eighth green, and I was mentally and physically exhausted after playing all these rounds. And there was no buggies back then, and I wondered how on earth I would walk back to the clubhouse. But fortunately, the secretary managed to get a couple of cars out to the 10th tee and picked us up and took us back to the clubhouse. And the funny thing was that a lot of the members didn't arrive home for their supper in the evening, and the wives were phoning the clubhouse wondering where the men were they still in the clubhouse drinking, but they were out watching the golf, and that's how they didn't get home in time. So I think they would get a reprieve after that. But the best player I have ever played in the Keggi Shield was Raymond Monroe.
Oh yeah.
R.A.G. Monroe. He was a fantastic golfer, and I never played any golfer so natural as he was. And he beat me in the final, I think 3-2, I think it was. And I probably played my best golf in that final, and he still beat me. And the story is that he was so good. He was in the running for the Walker Cup.
All right.
And he got a phone call one day from the organisers of the Walker Cup to come down for a trial.
Mm-hmm.
And he phoned them up and back, and he said that he couldn't turn up that day because he was playing with his pals. So you can guess he was never picked for the Walker Cup, but he was that kind of guy. He just wasn't too fussed about playing for the Walker Cup, which is strange.
So, Willie, 1973, you were offered the position as PGA professional at Dornoch.
Yes, that's correct. Well, the situation was that I was working as a dental technician at the time, and my two bosses, the two dentists, they were getting near retirement, so I knew it was the end of the line for that job. So I was looking for another job, and I always wanted to get into golf, but unfortunately after the war there was no interest in golf because people were just recovering from the war. And I thought, well, I'll take a chance with this job at the golf club. The advert was for a greenkeeper stroke professional.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, well, I'll apply just for the professional, because prior to the war there was the two jobs, greenkeeper and professional. But Hunter Donaldson, my predecessor, he was doing the two jobs, so I just applied for the professional side of it. And there was hardly any others interested in the job, and I was taking a big chance because nobody played golf in the winter because they couldn't, because the weathers were so bad. It's not like today with this climate change. So I was lucky to get the job, and I was taking a big risk at the time because there was no Americans, very few foreign people played, and it took you all day to get to Dornoch. There was no bridges, and it took you all morning to get in rest, never mind from Edinburgh and Glasgow to come up here. So the golfing season was really in the summer, July and August, and so I took a risk, and gradually things became a lot better, and much to my surprise, I never thought it would develop as it is today.
Yes, it is fairly grown. Now, 73 when you started there, Willie, but going back to your younger days, golf would have been 6 days a week with no Sundays. Would that be right?
No, there was no Sunday golf. No, there was no Sunday golf. And I remember Tane got Sunday golf, and some of my pals went over. They had one of them had a van. We went over and played golf in in Tain on a Sunday, but there was no Sunday golf here at that time.
And how did it sort of come around that it was allowed?
Well, there was a vote at the council meeting, and there was certain people that stood for the council to prevent the golf being played on a Sunday, but that was only on religious grounds, and they weren't interested in the people of Dornoch and the housing and the roads and whatnot, so they were unsuccessful in that respect, but it was passed at the council that golf could be played here.
So when you started your career as a professional and as a coaching professional, Willie, there was Golf Foundation was well established by that time.
Yes, I took on the job as coaching under the Golf Foundation, and I think the club here was one of the first clubs to get subsidised by the Golf Foundation, and I went round all the various clubs, including Bridge, Golspie, Brora, and I even went up to Thurso and taught up there, which was quite a trek at times.
It would be a long road up there now, not far, yeah. But there'll be quite a few good juniors came through your ranks, Willie?
Oh yes.
In fact, one of them still working here in the club.
Yeah, yes. My son, and the other one I taught was Kevin Mattison.
Mm-hmm.
And there was one or two others which I can't remember at the moment.
Claire started with you.
Oh yes, Claire was a very good, very good golfer, and she started as my assistant in the golf club here, and at one time I think she was thinking of turning professional, but that didn't happen. The job came up in the secretary's office, and I think she took that job, and she's done very well since then. So
tremendous.
But she still can play. She's a very natural player, and she still goes out and gives the top lady players a good game without doing virtually no practice.
Yeah. Along with that, good players, you'll have played with some fine players yourself in your day, Willie.
Oh yes, the first top player I played with was Ben Crenshaw. He came with Mark McCormack, who was his manager, and I played with Ian McIntosh, who was the club champion at that time. And we had a round of golf here, and I think Crenshaw and McCormack beat us by one hole. And then we had dinner up in the Royal Golf, and the four of us, and we had a long chat. And I think McCormack, he joined the club, I think, at that time. And that game, that incident, went into the Golf Illustrated in America, and people in America, of course, read about how good the golf course was and how Ben Crenshaw and McCormack enjoyed it, and that brought a trickle of Americans here. So they got interested, and that's because of that. That was the initial thing that brought the Americans here.
And I believe Crenshaw said to Tom Watson when they went down for the Open, "You've got to get up to Royal Dornoch."
Yes, and yes, the following year Tom Watson came with Sandy Tatum, but I didn't play with them. They both played together, and they played 18 holes, and a big crowd watched them, and they came into the shop after the game, and I said to Tom Watson, "You can leave your clubs here, and if you don't need to take them up to the Royal Golf Hotel." And he said, "Yes, I'll leave my clubs here," he says, "but don't tell anybody, but book the caddies who are going out in a couple of hours' time, but don't tell anybody." So I told the caddies that they were going to go out, and nobody knew, and they came down 2 hours later after I had something to eat, and they went out and played, and that's when he said, Tom Watson said it was the best golf game he enjoyed since a long time. And I remember saying to him after he came in, I said, I bet you can't remember when you played with hardly anybody watching. He says, no, I can't remember that. He says, there was a man and a dog, he says, and somebody else, he said, but that was all. But oh, I enjoyed it, he said.
Aye, aye.
But he was such a nice man, one of the nicest professionals I met in my career here.
And it's great to have him as our honorary
Yes.
member of the golf club. And you played with a left-hander.
Well, I played with Bob Charles, yes. I can't remember much about that, but I did certainly play with him, yes. He was the Open, he had won the Open championship. He was the Open, he had, I think, I can't remember it was the previous year, but he was the Open champion at one time.
Now, another gentleman that you played with, who maybe doesn't go into the golfing esteem of these gentlemen, is Mr. Dennis Lovell. And he's still got a history within Royal Dornoch on Wednesdays.
Oh yes, he was such a character. He was one of the most unusual characters that I've ever met in my life. And he used to book me for a game on a Friday morning, and that was some experience. And some of the stories I can't repeat here what he said.
We can't bleep. We can't bleep.
So, no, he was an unusual character. And one thing, my son was my assistant at the time, and Dennis always wanted to have a game with the assistant, and he said to me one day, "Can you get Andrew to play with me on Friday?" And I said, "Yes, that's no problem." So Andrew went out and played with him, and Dennis said to him, "You've been away playing in assistants tournaments." And Andrew said, "Yes," he said, but he says, "The last course I played was absolute rubbish," he said. It was pouring rain, it was all mud, he says, and when we play in an assistants tournament, we never get to play on a good course. Mm-hmm. And Dennis said to him, "I'll fix that," he said, "I'll fix that." He said, "I'm going in to see your father." And after the round, Dennis came in and he says, "Can you phone up the secretary of the PGA and Sandy Jones and tell him I want to promote an assistants tournament here, and I'll sponsor it," he says, because I spoke to Andrew Skinner and he says that they're always playing on rubbish courses. So that's how the assistants tournament came into existence, because of Dennis. He was very kind in that way, in that manner.
And did he start the tee off the geriatrics as well, Willie?
Oh, he started the geriatrics in 1979. He came in to me one day and he said he was going to start a senior section, and I was running the pro stable on a Thursday, and so he couldn't have it on a Thursday, because Thursday was the half-day closing in Dornoch. The shops used to close on a half-day on a Thursday back then. That would have been in the 1970s. And I said, "When are you going to start?" He said, "Oh, I'm going to start on Wednesday morning." And I said, "I don't think you'll get many people playing on a Wednesday morning," because there wasn't so many retired people in Dornoch at that time. So he said, "How many will I get?" I said, "You might get 4, you might get 6, if you're lucky." He said, "If I get 4, we're started." Now, I don't know how many he got on that day, but he started, and it gradually grew. And it's grown into quite a big thing now, and even in the winter we get almost 30 people playing, but he started it. But he made the rules at that time, and I remember playing with him one day, and we were out last, and it was a very frosty day, and there was preferred lies on the fairway, and there was white frost all over the place. And at one of the holes, he put about the third hole it was, he put his ball into the deep rough, and he looked at it and he said, seeing it's so frosty today, I think we'll make preferred lies anywhere on the golf course. So he picked his ball up and dropped it on a better lie. But the only two who knew about that new rule was myself and himself, and we were out last.
That's Dennis Lovell for you. Yeah.
That's one of the Pleiter stories, but I won't dwell on any more at the moment. Right.
But of course, you've been abroad representing the club, Willie.
Oh yes, I played in a lot of the courses abroad, and I played at Pinehurst, and I had my photo taken with Donald Ross, but that was only his statue, I'm afraid. It wasn't at Pinehurst. No, I played Pinehurst and East Lake and the Country Club of North America, North Carolina, and I can't remember the other name of the other one, but I played a lot of the top courses up there. But I never managed to get to Augusta.
You didn't? No. Can you remember the story with Gordon Lawson? About when you're out in the Country Club of North Carolina?
Oh yes, yes, I was playing with Gordon Lawson, and we were out there, and he says to me, he says, people are always discovering I'm a lawyer, and they're always asking me legal questions and whatnot, and I'm fed up of it, and I'm on holiday. And I said, Gordon, why not tell them that you're a plumber?
Right.
He said, oh, that's a good idea. So after that, he was telling them he was a plumber.
And did it backfire on him at all?
Oh, I don't know.
Very good. Now, Willie, your service for the PGA has been commemorated.
Yes.
I'm sure you're feeling that proud.
One of the greatest honours I got in my golfing career was, it just came out of the blue. I got this letter saying that I was going to be awarded this special award, the John Panton Award for services to the PGA and to golf. And I had to go down to Glasgow for the dinner and the presentation. It was held in the Hilton Hotel, and in front of over 700 people, I was presented with the John Panton Award, which I thought was a fantastic honour, and so that was one of the highlights of my career.
And I think very well deserved, Willie. And if there was such a thing as the Royal Dornoch Award, then for the dedication and the service, for the humour and for the contribution to developing golf with juniors and welcoming new people in, I think you would be first name on that, Willie. So thank you very much indeed.
Thank you
For contributing to oral memories.
Right. Thank you.